So it has been a really long time since I've been on here, and I know I say I want to be consistent, but other things in my life have kept me very consistent in other ways. I can't even begin to explain how things have transformed and really gone above and beyond what I would really expect things to go. And as I sit here with my dogs who decide to be really obnoxious next to me, I really envision how, life has taken a turn for such a crazy, chaotic way, but for the better. I was laid off last year. I'm sure you know if you listen to my podcast or my YouTube, but it was also a blessing. I've been given this incredible opportunity to rewrite my story in a way that most people wouldn't take this time to do. It was never the right time before to do what I've wanted to do until now because I was never ready for it. And I think we get to this point in our life where we think, is it the time to make this risk or to take this plunge or go for it? Well, this opportunity was perfectly placed in front of me in a bow, and I overanalyzed it for moments. I overanalyzed it for a little bit, and I hummed and hawed. I really questioned. I had anxiety. I said, what if this doesn't work out? And what if I am making the wrong choice? And honestly, it wasn't really that big of a decision, but past experiences in people's lives can really shape how they make decisions in the future. Past traumas, past failed ventures, businesses, relationships, and that baggage gets carried with us forward every time we go into a new opportunity. If we don't really resurface ourselves and really realize that that thing is meant to stay in the past, we really bring it forward with us. So when I was thinking about it, I said to myself, but what if it does work? I had all these people really praising me and saying that I have this chance to go for it and I should have gone for it before. But deep inside, I really overanalyzed, but I went for it. I am enrolled to be a holistic life coach and a nervous system somatic practitioner. And honestly, it couldn't be more perfectly fit for me. Taking a look back, a few years ago, I went back to school for social work. I wanted to be a therapist. I was so passionate and driven to be the person that helps others cope through trauma and really dive in deep to find the root cause of their issues. So when I searched for 6 months to find an internship, I was really confused why I couldn't find an internship. I really questioned why I took this plunge to go for social work. I really was, concerned as to whether or not it was the right move for me. And I really struggled. I wasn't sure. And so I ended up ceasing going to school because I couldn't find that internship. Fast forward a few years later, and at that point I already researched other ways I could help people with their trauma and help cope them through problems and issues in their lives. And I saw a life coach. I thought, for years I had thought about the life coach, but I thought, that was not me. It's not accredited. It's not credible. It's not as good as a therapist. But what if that was always the plan God had for me? What if that was the thing that he wanted me to go for? I sit here and I try not to get emotional, thinking of how everything aligned perfectly to get me to this point. I have to stop often to not get so emotional because, it really is a gift. I started this church group this week. Well, not this week, maybe 2 months ago, called Rooted. And what was so inspiring about the group was that we all came together for the same common cause. It was so great to be able to have other people that you could confide in, that you could relate to, that went through the same struggles as you. And the main purpose of the group was to bring and people together to have a common cause to serve God, to bring out and share the gospel with other people, and to connect and to have that connection, that community, that sense of belonging. And I think that's something that was really missing in my life before. I had joined Bible study after Bible study, and I felt the connection was not there. I wanted that deep connection. I wanted the need for people to connect on a deeper level. I don't want the surface level. I've dealt with surface level my entire life, and I want that depth. I want that need for each other, that common cause, that connection that can only be brought together if you decide to be vulnerable. And I think if you're not being vulnerable with yourself, what are you living for in this world? What are you living for? And we all have a purpose, and God has placed us here on this earth in this very moment for a reason. And maybe the thing doesn't make sense like right now, but in the future, it might make sense. And there's a reason you're placed where you are and why you are here. And I think if we fail to acknowledge our purpose, we're missing out. And that's what was so obvious when I looked back and I said, maybe even going to school for a little bit amount of time for social work and realizing that being a therapist, I could not divulge the amount of information and the amount of help that I would like to, that I could as a life coach. As a life coach, I can share and give more back to that person than I could as a therapist. I have this opportunity to do a lot more as, a holistic life coach and a nervous system practitioner because I have this ability to share more tools and things they can use. I can go more in depth with these opportunities. And I think logically about it, and I say, what if I don't ever get a client? But I have this energy that I'm putting out there that I'm certain that I will get a client because I want to help people. My entire life, I've been drawn to people that I can connect with and point them in the right direction for what they need. And I can give them the advice. And I don't know. I don't think it's a mistake. I think it's just the way that the universe works and the way that God has made me and the way that you are intentionally made for something and to help others as a community. And, I sit here and I get emotional, but I also think that it is so good to be able to experience the emotion that you feel when you're doing the right thing and you're figuring it out after, trying for so long. I've tried so many corporate jobs and, nothing against them, but at some point you get so drained if you're not in the right field, you're not feeling the right energy, you're not doing what your passion is. And if you're not serving what your passion is, you're really going to get drained. It's not a joke. It's going to happen. It's eventual. And sometimes these people get caught in this really monotonous cycle of wondering why they feel the way they feel. But they really haven't discovered themselves. They haven't sat in silence. They haven't really listened to what God has told them. And I feel blessed to know that I was created differently to know and feel on such a different level. And sometimes you have to really access this place in your mind by letting go of things, letting go of what doesn't serve you, letting go of the things that are taking up space in your mind. And again, this is why, I became a yoga instructor because I think yoga has really showed me that trauma is stored in your body, and it's got me to feel at a deeper level and express my emotions. And sometimes you just need to sit alone, be alone, and really embrace being alone with your thoughts and letting God speak to you. And, I think that it's very important to be able to express yourself, to be able to really embrace who you are. And when you're living for somebody else or you're living for what you aren't meant to be, you get caught up in this cycle, and it's really, it's kind of like, I don't know, you're on this gerbil wheel and you're trying to jump off, but you can't jump off. It's paralysis. And when you work on yourself and you really find who you are inside, it becomes a different version. And meaning you've connected with your inner self and you're able to go on, you're able to move past it. And I think, another thing I've learned from this church group that I've joined, which all things must come to an end, so it doesn't last forever. But there's really great ideas and things that I can carry on with me throughout it. We are all guilty of, going through life and not being our true self, meaning, experiencing things that have a stronghold on you. And in order to free yourself from it, sometimes you have to pray. You have to give it to God. And I really like last week's session where we learned about how to, surrender what you're holding on to let go, to really feel free and blessed by the Holy Spirit. This sounds crazy maybe if you're not a Christian, but maybe consider this a sign to look into it, because the only thing holding you back from being you is really truly accepting and bringing darkness to light. And, for example, one thing that I really struggled with was, I want to say is, it's called rejection, but it's basically seeking acceptance and feeling unworthy. And I guess, it can relate to this, because I would say that I didn't think I was good enough to do this. I didn't think that this was something, even though I was passionate about it, that this was something I could make work, because I kept thinking of all the failed things I did in the past, real estate. And I don't really consider real estate a failure. I just decided to leave it because it wasn't meant for me. But I've done other sales jobs and stuff, and not that this would be sales, but I'd have to find clients, of course. However, I felt like was I trying to appease somebody else? Because I question, what would everybody else think if I went this route? Would they think it's crazy because I'm not doing the regular traditional job? And, at the end of the day, it's your life. So, and I preach about it. So why was I being critical of myself? And I think, what I thought was really cool was there's a different Bible verse for each insecurity that you're experiencing. And when you go through and you read it and you really pray about it and you're really intentional, if you're struggling with a particular thing, it really helps you reset your mind and get you through it. And it really helps God listen to you. And I think that's the thing that can help guide you if you're stuck and you're stuck in a rut and you're not sure and you're questioning, where are you going? You need to give it to God. No, it sounds crazy, but at the end of the day, God gave his only son, Jesus, for our salvation here on this earth. And that's why we have free will to decide what we want to do, decide how we want to act. And we are often tempted. Let me tell you, the devil deceives himself so many different ways. And if you're not, you have to be continuously practicing or continuously self-aware of these distractions in your life, because at the end of the day, you can succumb to these distractions, meaning you tell yourself something, it's cycling in your mind, and you're believing what you're telling your mind, which has such a stronghold on you. So sometimes you need to redirect your mind. And sometimes I have that problem with anxiety, and I think something over and over again, and I think, this isn't possible. And that's what held me up for 3 years, because, I was really distraught when I left social work, and I don't think it was the right time for me to jump into this. I had to really dive in deep and think, was I going to give this my all? Because in the past, I've considered things to be a sprint and not a marathon. And if you want to own your own business, you want to do your own thing, you have to show yourself grace. You have to be passionate about it, but you also have to realize that things do not happen overnight. And I think that's a problem, and something I've been working on for a while is being patient with myself and accepting that it's in God's timing sometimes. But at the end of the day, if it's the right thing and I know I'm doing the right thing and doing it the right way, my intention will turn into success. And, everybody, they say, has a different definition of success. But for me, success is serving God and also being self-aware and knowing that your intentions are in the right place. Meaning, if I'm doing this, am I helping people the right way? Am I pointing them in the right direction? Am I able to serve them the right way? Because honestly, that's what matters. Your intention, how you intentionally do things. They say this with exercise also. If you're not intentional about how you do your exercises, are you going to get the results you want? No. And you have to be patient with it as well. Nothing happens overnight. And if it happens overnight, are the results or the fruits of the labor going to be as rewarding as putting in the work? That's what you got to ask yourself. Because if you don't put in that work to see the results, what are you missing out on? You have to put in the work, because the work makes it so much more fruitful. And it's the discipline and consistency. And, life gets crazy monotonous. I'm not going to lie. And you get burnout. But you have to remind yourself to take breaks, show yourself grace, give yourself some time to breathe and relax, and then recenter yourself. Because if not, it's exhausting. It's draining. And then you lose focus. I'm telling you, you go all in, and I'm crazy. Sometimes I go all in. I'm not going to lie. But you go all in, and you're burnt out, and you're like, I'm so sick of this. I don't even like this anymore. It's not my passion. But you can't tell because you have zero clarity, because you went in so fast and you didn't take a break and you didn't set your focus somewhere else, which is why I probably started 5 million hobbies and never finished one successfully, is because, like wire wrapping jewelry, is because I was so caught up in perfection the first few times I did it, which is hard. And I gave up because I couldn't figure it out, and I was sick of it, and I spent too much time, and I needed to take a break. And that applies to life. So if you're burnt out, you're not sure, you have zero clarity, take a break, take a breather, and pray about it. And be intentional. Ask God. And God is always listening. And, if you're not a Christian and you're listening, and maybe this is your first time and you're not even sure, I promise you, God has never left your side. He's there. He's listening. He wants you to talk to him. But at the end of the day, what I will say is that you can't just throw away what you feel like you're meant for in this life. If you feel like you're not in the right place, pray about it. Maybe there's a purpose for why you are where you are, and it's not revealed yet. And just pray for clarity. Pray for, a sign to know what the next step might be. And just really spend time in God's word and see what shows up for you. But don't let yourself get lost in this monotonous cycle of life, because life is fun. It's exciting. It's exhilarating. And it's intentional. It's emotional. But it's only what you make of it. And if you decide to give up on it and you think that a job is just a job, there's so much more to it than that, because we are just letting society tell us how to live. And at the end of the day, what matters is how you decide to give back and give into this world. And you can't really say you've lived life if you're living for nothing. So experience life the right way and with purpose and intention. And don't forget to show yourself grace. So I should hopefully be on here more religiously. If you're new to listening to me, I do have a YouTube channel. It's under my name, Fawn Thayer. I also am on other social media sites as well. I would love for you to check it out. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I am a yoga instructor and, working on getting my holistic life coaching certification, and really look forward to connecting with anybody. All right. Hope you all have a glorious day. Bye.